Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. You're watching Bourbon Battles, and I'm your host, Joe. Hey, we've got a really controversial episode for you today. I'm really curious to see what you think about it. Today we're going to talk about a bunch of different whiskeys from the famed Buffalo Trace Distillery down there in Kentucky. These are allocated whiskeys. We're going to talk about what do they cost at retail, what do they go for in the secondary market, and what would I personally pay for them. So stick with us and we'll get right to it. Okay, so here we go. Like I said, we're going to talk about Buffalo Trace products, and this is the one that started it all. Blandon's. Do you know anything about bourbon? Then you've probably went around and tried to find one of these at some point when you got into whiskey, only to find out that you can't find these sitting around on somebody's shelf. So we're going to talk to you today about different things that are made by the same distillery that makes this one, what they cost, what I'd pay for them, and the whole nine yards. We're going to go into it. Now, keep in mind, some areas of the country are different than others. Like, for example, the first expression that we're going to talk about is just regular old Buffalo Trace. You see it here. Guys, this is a good whiskey. In Indiana, you can find it anywhere. You can find it at retail. So, where you live, it might be a totally different situation. So keep that in mind. I'm doing it from my perspective here in Indiana. So let's get started with these. Buffalo Trace, it comes to you at $26.99. And where did I find that information? I use the Ohio liquor website, right? It shows you retail in Ohio. It's an easy website to use. So that's what I used for all of these, with the exception of one or two I couldn't find. So yeah, $26.99 is the retail on this stuff. It's secondary market, in other places, not so much Indiana, right? It goes for $40. So now I got to figure out what I'd pay for it. And by the way, if you're wondering what I'm drinking here, well, you're going to have to stay tuned to find out. Because I will tell you that this, in my opinion, is better than a lot of the really high-end whiskeys on this list, like the entire Weller and the entire Pappy lineup. So I might have let the cat out of the bag a little bit. Yes, it's a wheated bourbon. We'll get into what that is closer to the end. So the Buffalo Trace that you see, what it looks like here, what would I pay for it? It's hard to say, right? I really enjoy it. I think it's a great beginner whiskey. It's a lower proof, it's an absolute staple on everybody's shelf. I get it. If it's hard to find where you're at, I'd go ahead and pay the $40 for it. It's that good. Speaking of good, holy moly. So the next on our list, these are in no particular order, right? This is kind of how I went through them all, is the Eagle Rare, guys. It's a 10-year-old whiskey, so you're going to pay a little bit of a premium in most cases for something that's got that kind of age statement in it. That means it's been in the barrel in a rick house in Kentucky for 10 years. That's a long time. So this stuff retails at $41.99. If I see it in Indiana at a place like Total Wine, it's more like $49.99 or $54.99, I think is what I paid for it last time. We see these frequently on secondary sites for the $75 area, right? What I'm starting to see this trend on secondary sites is the prices are starting to come down a little bit. I have a theory on that. I feel like a lot of people went and grabbed all this whiskey up and they thought they were going to make a lot of money, and they're starting to see that the end is near, so they've lowered the prices. So I actually saw the Eagle Rare as low as $50 today on a secondary site. No problem there. If I didn't own a bottle of Eagle Rare and I really was just dying to have one on the shelf, I'd probably pay the $75 secondary price for it. In fact, Eagle Rare is probably my favorite Buffalo Trace expression outside of any of their wheated expressions, which is the Weller lineup and the Pappy Van Winkle lineup. So I love it. I love the Eagle Rare. The store picks can be absolutely amazing. So next on our list, we have, of course, Blanton's, which is the bottle that I showed you starting off here. Blanton's was the first single barrel. They started this whole thing off. The marketing on this thing, the bottle is amazing. It's got horses and letters and all that stuff. You don't know what that all means, I'll do an episode on it. If you leave me a comment and tell me you want to see an episode on the history of Blanton's, let me know and I'll do that, right? So Blanton's retails for, this is what's interesting, I could not find it on the Ohio website, but I believe that it's right around that $59.99, right? I think the last bottle of Blanton's I bought was $59.99. So I can distinctly remember me and a friend Lonnie were down in Kentucky, and we went everywhere, and we finally found one of these, and we paid over retail for it, right? Um, but that's okay, because I think it's one of the most important bottles you can have in any bourbon collection. I've said this many times, because bourbon's supposed to be enjoyed with friends, right? So you have somebody new to whiskey over, they're going to immediately gravitate to that bottle, and you can let them try that. So I routinely see these things go for $100 in secondary markets, right? So I think if you don't own a bottle of Blanton's, it's worth $100. Would I personally spend $100 on a bottle of Blanton's? No, I have 6 of them right there. I would only pay retail for Blanton's. But if I had none and I needed one in my collection to share, I'd be okay with $100. So I'm going to skip around. This is, like I said, there's no rhyme or reason in this. One of my favorite expressions, I said Eagle Rare is my favorite. This is actually probably my favorite, is George T. Stag Jr. I'm sorry, it's not George T. Stag. It's just Stag Jr., which that Junior's been dropped. It's just Stag. It's a barrel-proof product. It's got a good age on it. If you're new to whiskey, Stag might not be for you. It's high proof. It drinks pretty hot. So Stag comes to us at a retail price of $54.99. Now, of every whiskey I have in this room, and there's a bunch of them, right? We talk about good values, right? I talk about Evan Williams Bottled and Bond for $15 all the time. What an amazing value. Any Maker's Mark Private Select in the $65 range. What an amazing value. The list goes on and on and on. Early Times, Wild Turkey 101. Well, Stag at $54.99 is one of the best values in all of whiskey. However, I have never, ever, ever seen a bottle of Stag sitting on the shelf anywhere for retail. See it in lotteries. You see it for way more than that. I've seen it for as much as $500 in a liquor store. Don't do that. We've blinded Stag with other expressions. And if you want to know why we drink it blind, because at Bourbon Battles, we don't give a rat's ass what's on the label. We just like good whiskey. So this is the perfect whiskey to do blind. There's a lot of things that will beat Stag in a blind, such as Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof. Why does it beat it? People ask me that all the time. How can Jack Daniel's beat Stag? Well, it's a simple equation. It tastes better. I'm sorry, it just does. So anyway, $54.99 retail. I see this for a long time. It was $300 secondary. That's every bottle is $300. I've seen it creeping down closer to the $250 range. And because of all those things, I have a bottle. There's literally less than an ounce left in it because I'm weird like that. I need to kill it just to be done with it. Because I don't have a bottle, or I need a bottle, I'd probably pay $150, $160 for that thing. Yes, that's 3 times retail. It is what it is, guys. It's good whiskey. It's better than a $55 whiskey, in my opinion. That's what I would do. Let me know in the comments what you think about Stag and how much would you pay for it. In fact, do me a favor. Whatever your favorite Buffalo Trace allocated whiskey is, leave me a comment down below. Tell me the name of it, like Elmer T. Lee, which is the next thing we're going to talk about, how much you would pay for it. And hey, and if you found any of these for retail, let me know. I love those stories and the story behind it. Shoot me a little message right there in the comments. I'd love to hear it. So let's get right on. We're going to have to move a little quicker. Otherwise, this is going to be a 3-hour episode. So Elmer T. Lee is one of the most sought after Buffalo Trace expressions there is. I've had it. I've only had it in a bar. I've never owned a bottle. It retails for $45.99. You see it going for $300 plus. This is tough, because this is one that I think at $45.99 is just an okay deal. It's just okay. It's good, but it's not that great. But I would still probably pay $100 for one because I don't own one, if that makes sense. So yes, there is part of that. When you collect whiskey, you want things. It's like baseball cards, right? You'll pay for what you want. Now I'm going to zip right through the E.H. Taylor collection, one after another. Small batch goes for $45.99. You see it secondary for $100. If I didn't own one, I'd pay $75 to get one. Other than that, retail's about where I'd go with it. When I say I'd pay that, that $100 for it. It's because I want it to have to share with people that have never tried it before. As far as the value of the whiskey, $49.99. That's top. That's top. Uh, the single barrel $67.99 goes for $175 to $200. I'd pay $100 for those. Those are really good. So I'd pay a little bit extra. And pretty much the exact same thing on the rye. They go for $75 retail, 150 secondary. I'd give $100 for it. That's going to fall right along with the barrel proof. $78 retail. You go for 150 to 200. I'd give $100 for that bad boy. They're good. I think the small batch is just okay. I think everything else is pretty exceptional. Of course, they do. If you can find any of those in a store pick, heck yeah. Let's zip right through the Weller lineup next. I'm only going to do the Antique 107 Full Proof and the Weller 12. If you know me very well, you know I absolutely love Antique 107. The price MSRP has gone up to $55.99. If you can find it for that, buy them all. I'll take them. Secondary prices are $100. I see that all day, every day. Secondary markets, and I'd give the $100 for it. In fact, when I'm out and I've got the better part of a whole bottle over there, you better believe it. If I got to pay $100 to replace it, I'm getting another one. Foolproof's an interesting one. Everything, it's so easy to blind and beat Weller Foolproof. We'll leave it at that. I've got a video coming out soon that will explain that. Some of the things that are better than that. It retails for $55.98. Secondary prices around $200. I'd give a $100 bill for it if I didn't have one. You got to understand that I don't think that it's worth $100 whiskey, and there's things that cost less that are better. Quite a few things actually, but to have that bottle to be able to share, and look behind me. You can tell I like to collect whiskey. I want those labels. I'm not ashamed to say it. I want the cool bottles. I want them to share. I want them to try, and they're cool to have. So yes, I'd give $100 for it. We're going to follow along the same lines with Weller 12. It usually goes for $200 secondary, and I'd give a $100 bill for one of those too. Am I a big fan of either one of the Full Proof or the 12? They're good whiskeys. Don't get me wrong. I had the opportunity. I just reviewed it, a CYPB from the Weller lineup. They go in that $65, $70 retail range. I'd probably go up to about $150 on that bad boy because that was absolutely freaking delicious. I might even like it better than the Antique 107. There, I said it. So let's go on to some of the fun stuff now. Then we're going to wrap it up with the Antique Collection and 3 of the Pappies. So Pappy Van Winkle is some of the most overrated whiskey in the world, but do I want them? Heck yes, I want them on my shelf, no doubt about it. Old Rip Van Winkle, 10-year-old. It's really super similar to the Antique 107. $99.99. If I see them, I'm going to buy a case of them for that at retail. You're not going to find them at retail. You're just not. They go for around $650, and yes, I would give a $200 bill just to have one sitting on my shelf. But this right here is better than Rip Van Winkle. It's better than Weller Antique 107, even though I love that stuff. It's better than Weller Full Proof by a long shot and Weller 12. Let's get into Van Winkle Lot B. I have one of these things. I love to blind it. If you come to my studio, I'm going to hand you 2 glasses of whiskey, and sometimes that old Lot B ends up in there against this, and this wins. And 100% of people in my office have picked this over Lot B. Lot B goes for $110, but you're not going to find it for that. You'll see it secondary markets for that $700, $800, $900 range. I know a guy that paid $1,200 for a bottle of Lot B. You've got shit for brains, okay? What would I give for it? I give $200 for it just to have a bottle of it because it's so much fun to share with friends. The last one we're going to talk about out of the Pappy Van Winkle lineup, and there's more, is a 15-year. And the reason I included this one was because I just had this. I'm going to do a full review on it, but I had a nice pour of 15-year-old. It goes for $170 retail, $169.99, I do believe. They go for upwards of $1,500 to $2,000. Look, I'd love to have one of these labels, right? Look at that, Julian, or Pappy over there smoking that cigar. Everybody knows that bottle as being one of the most premier whiskeys in the world. I'd love to have one, but I'd only give about $300 for one. I know you're thinking that's crazy. Why not $400? Well, The whiskey inside, it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's a great wheated bourbon. It's good, but there's so much out there that you can have a better experience with. It's where we get caught up in the hype of these labels, right? We talk about it all the time. We don't give a rat's ass what's on the label. We just like good whiskey. We like figuring that out, and that's true to a point. I do like the labels. I do want to have a broad, variety of things to share with people, but what's in the bottle doesn't correlate with all the hype. So this is one that, I mean, for what's in the bottle, it's not even worth retail. I'm going to say it. It's just not. It's not a $170 bottle with taste alone, and I think most people would agree with that if they were truly drinking blind. You got to understand what truly drinking blind is. That's to have no idea what you're drinking. If I just did a Old Fitzgerald decanter against Maker's Mark 101, I picked the Maker's Mark 101. Had I known that I was drinking Old Fitz and Maker's Mark, I would have known which one was Old Fitz, hands down, no questions asked, and it likely would have changed my opinion on that battle. So we're going to talk about the antique collection here. We're going to do it as a whole. So these bottles go for around $124.99. They go anywhere. Gosh, I've seen $600 for the Sazerac or the Handy, up to $1,400, $1,500, $2,000 for a George T. Stag. So my opinion, I've not had the Eagle Rare. I've never had the William LaRue Weller. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say. So, but I'm going to use that to still move forward with what I'm going to say. I just had a nice pour of George T. Stag from 2000. And I don't know if it's the best whiskey I've ever had, but I can't tell you what whiskey I liked better, right? It was an amazing experience. So what would I give for like that particular bottle, a 2020 George T. Stag? My wife would kill me, but I'd probably give $500 for it. I just would. Same with the Eagle Rare, and same with the William LaRue Weller. Now, when it comes down to the Sazerac and the Thomas Handy, I'd probably just give $200 or $300 for them. I've not had them, so $300. If I saw it sitting on a shelf, if somebody said, "Hey, I'm in a crunch. Would you give me $300 for this?" I'd take them. More than that, I'd probably be out unless I tried it first and it was just some amazing experience. So, hey, guys, let me know what you think about the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. What you think about all these Buffalo Trace allocated products. Obviously, there's more than this out there. I just picked a handful of them and rambled on long enough. So please do me a favor, like, subscribe, all that stuff. You can't imagine how much it helps this. Starting to gain some momentum with the YouTube algorithm. So I really appreciate everything you're doing. Hopefully this video will go great. Wherever you saw this, if you saw it on Facebook, do me a favor if you would share it. That'd be awesome. Hey, like I said, my name's Joe. You're watching Bourbon Battles. I want to remind you, drinking bourbon is supposed to be fun. Oh, thanks for reminding me. What is this? What is this crazy whiskey that old dumb Joe from Bourbon Battles says is better than the entire Pappy lineup up to the 15-year? It's better than the entire Weller Vertical. What is this? Well, it's none other than Maker's 46 Cask Strength. If you don't agree with me, that's perfectly okay. Everybody's palate's a little different. Hey, if you drink, don't drive.
If you drink, don't drive, do the watermelon crawl.